Welcome back. I want to talk about Severance. I'm not going to upload this to the hockey channel, though on some level I'm tempted. Severance is a show that I saw the ad for, and it convinced me to get Apple TV Plus. Now, there's so many different streaming services, so that's why I hadn't seen Ted Lasso. That's why I hadn't seen The Morning Show either. So I'm watching Ted Lasso. I'm also watching The Morning Show, just in first seasons of both. But I want to talk about Severance because this was absolutely must see TV. Now, if you haven't seen Severance, my advice is get Apple TV Plus. They're not paying me to say it. Go watch Severance and come back and thank me later. This is absolutely brilliant television that is structured so well. It creates a world of its own. This is an alternate universe. This is not our Earth. This is not a world we recognize, and yet it seems very familiar. We see these weird dystopian nightmare kind of shows, and sometimes they get so detached from reality, or they might try so hard to come across as edgy. They might try to come across as I don't know, they just try to shock you, and they try to be, extreme, and there might be extreme violence, might be extreme sexual content. This doesn't really have that. There are definitely moments you feel kind of queasy for the characters, but that's more out of a concern for the characters. So again, if you haven't seen it, it's great. Now, I'm going to get into spoiler territory, even though, let's be honest, we don't know much more at the end of the first season than we know at the start. And I think that's brilliant. And I think with the way this is written, this could go on for a long time. And I know as Yvonne and I were watching it, I said, wait a minute. This show could have so much more going on. There are so many places you could take Severance. We still don't know what they do. We still don't know what their job is. We know they're macro data refining. My theory is that they're marking people for death. That's my theory. You can have whatever theory you want. It's just look for scary numbers, and then you take those numbers, put them in the trash, and like those numbers are probably people. It's probably people acting in a way that seems scary, so you delete those people. And again, it might be completely wrong, but the fact that this is a show where we can have these incredible divergent ideas of what it could be. It's absolutely fantastic. The acting in this is top notch. I'm really happy for Adam Scott. Adam Scott has always been a very good actor. He's always been in comedy shows, Parks and Rec, Good Place as well, and just in general, he's been more of a comedic actor. This shows his acting chops as Mark S. or Mark Scout. Absolutely just amazing. Irving, John Turturro. We all know John Turturro is a delight, right? The scenes with John Turturro's Irving and Bert, Christopher Walken, are so good. They are so rich. They are so filled, and there are these little moments. There are these little moments between the two characters. And in this dystopian society, what about gay relationships, right? What does their company think about? Like, the company doesn't want to have, like, Lumen doesn't want relationships on the floor, but how would they feel about, like, they know Bert's gay, right? Odds are they know Irving's gay as well, but how would they feel? Like, we don't know how far down the rabbit hole all this stuff is going to go. It is clearly there's some cultish behavior in this show, some pretty severe cultish behavior that seems to control the world, that seems at least what we see of it. And that's the beauty of it too, is that we only see this community. We don't see anything from outside of the community. Rickon publishes a book by himself. How did he do that? Who published it with him? He has people come over and everybody's read his book and everybody's sitting there going over it with him. Okay, so Rickon's a celebrity then with a book, or is he not? Like, is he well known outside of the community? And then Rickon's book is kind of treated like a joke by Mark S. at the surface level, or at the very least, Rickon's treated like a joke. He never gets the book at the surface level. But having that in Lumen, he really likes the book. He memorizes it. And not just him. Dylan memorizes it. And oh my gosh, by the end of the season, Dylan, played by Zach Cherry, is my favorite character on the show. I was rooting out loud for Dylan. When all that's going on, and I'm trying my best not to spoil it, but in that final episode when everything's going on, I kept saying out loud, "Come on, Dylan." And the second to last episode was like, all right, Dylan's the man now. And I think if Dylan has to resort to murder, I think he's okay with that now. I think Dylan's gone so far down the rabbit hole. He is fine with, help, I gotta kill somebody, I gotta kill somebody. So you've got them, and then you've got Halle R, who wakes up at the start of the first episode on a table. It's a weird place to put somebody before waking them up, right? On a table. I find that odd. And apparently, Mark said at one point during the series, yeah, I woke up on the table too. That's your first memory. Your first memory is being on a table. Not knowing where you are, not really knowing who you are. You have no memories before that moment. Because what Severance is it's this idea that you have, you get hired for work. Well, work can be a slog, right? Who hasn't wanted to not remember going to work that day? I know I've had days where I go home and think, man, it would have been nice if I didn't remember my work day. So they actually have a surgery where they can flick on, flick off that part of their brain. So when they're at work, there's a personality and a person that's born for work. And then when they're at home, there's no memory of what happened at work. There's no memory of any of it, although I don't think those chips are 100%. I think what's gone on with Irving shows those chips are not 100%. But it is really interesting to me to watch as Halle R figures out where she is, and played fantastically. Bret Lower. I've never seen her in anything before this. I will track down other things she's been in because her acting skill is off the charts. Absolutely love her portrayal. Really, honestly. And then, and those are your four. Those are your four. Now here's the thing, and this is where the whole conspiracy comes in. They've got this huge office for 4 people. Right? The first thing I thought when I saw 4 people in this giant office, and later on we see that O&D, where Bert works, that there's, about maybe a dozen people. That's not enough people for a building of that size. So if you watch Doctor Who, you know what a perception filter is. You can make it so that people can't see certain things, right? Think the silence on Doctor Who, where you see them, you're scared of them, and as soon as you turn away, you forget you saw them. So you're scared of something, you're not sure what it is. And it's just out of the corner of your eye. And the silence, you never remember them, so it's really hard to have any kind of ability to track the silence down, because as soon as you look away, you forget about them. And I think that, again, for lack of a better term, there's something about this chip where they're able to perceive their small group. I think that building is filled with people. I think there are tons of people in that building. They can't hear them. They can't see them. The only time where I think that kind of breaks down is when they're in the break room. Because when they're in the break room, they can hear things through the wall here and there. And I think that's where it breaks down. But it's fantastic, because here we are, I'm 8 minutes in, and I haven't really spoiled anything. Because I don't understand, and it's all pure speculation on my part. Ben Stiller's directed this, as far as I can see, created and written it. Ben Stiller, again, known as a comic actor, comedic, I kept saying to Yvonne, White Goodman's behind this. This is fantastic work. And the secondary characters, if you want to call them that, Miss Cobell or Mrs. Selvig on the outside is played by Patricia Arquette. She is not severed. So that's something to keep in mind throughout the series. She's not severed. Miss Casey, who is the wellness officer, you find out more about her as the series goes on. And it's weird because when they first introduced her, and with how emotionless she was, and how she spoke, I thought, cyborg? Is she a robot? Is she human? Is she real? And so I couldn't get past this idea that maybe this character wasn't a real person. That there was something to me in the way that it was written, the way it was acted, that was off. Now, later on in the series, it would appear, and again, I'm saying it would appear that it is confirmed, Miss Casey's a real person, and that Miss Casey is, somebody who's capable of emotions and feelings, and starts to show some sign of humanity, which is when Lumen isn't happy with her. That seems to be the case. When you start acting like a normal person, and normal people can be dicks, then they don't like you very much. And then Milchik. Tremel Tillman. This, and again, it feels like I've seen him in a bunch of stuff. So I looked him up and I was like, nope, he's never been in anything I've watched. He just feels familiar. And oh my gosh, he is the most easy to hate person on the show, even though Patricia Arquette is very much a character that you will hate so much. Milchik is just so over the top. Even when he's nice, you want to punch him in the head. Like, it is so well written. And that's what a villain should be, right? So even when he's being nice, you know there's an angle. Even when he's being nice, if he's nice in the show, it's because he's lost control of the moment, right? So I will be nice to you because I've lost control of the moment. But boy, as soon as I've got that control back, you are in trouble. And so this show's already been renewed for season 2. That was something I checked before I got into season 1. This is something I've started doing. I'm getting tired of getting into series through streaming services or even on networks that get canceled right away. It is so frustrating. And I went through that with Archive 81, where Love the Show did the review on here, and it looked like it was getting a second season. And then Netflix said, people didn't binge watch it fast enough, so they pitched it. They got rid of it. And I think I'm tired of that crap. I really am. Not every show can be binge watched immediately. It's not how people naturally watch most programming, especially if it's got some kind of emotional upheaval to it, if it's difficult. Like right now, I'm still catching up on Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist. We're almost up to the end of the first season. We had lost track of it, and then it was gone off of our TV on demand, but it's on Apple TV Plus. So we're up to the part where it's getting really upsetting. So I'm not watching it as fast. Having lost a parent myself, and my wife being as emotional as she can be watching shows, and how she gets emotionally invested, it's a lot. It gets really heavy. So this show is one that there were a couple of times where I had to take a break, and I'll be completely transparent. Before the season finale, with how batcrap crazy the 8th episode was, I actually had to cheat. I had to spoil it for myself. I was like, I can't do this. And when I watched the finale, even though I had read spoilers, I was still getting nervous. And I was still thinking, those spoilers could have lied to me. It wouldn't be the first time spoilers have lied to me. I don't think this is going to happen. This is going to make me so angry. So it is a very good show, and if I'm willing to read spoilers because I'm nervous, that is a good sign. There were books that I would read when I was a teenager in my early 20s where I'd get really nervous, and I might flip near the back and go, yep, still alive, and then go back and keep reading because I'm thinking this character's dead. Oh, nope, okay, all right, cool. And then I go back, and then I could kind of relax a little bit, which is I don't recommend that for everybody, obviously, but it's where I can tell that emotionally I'm invested in the show and in the characters. And I'm not sure that you can resolve this in a way, because we find out from Petey, played very amazingly by Yul Vasquez. Petey's a guy who worked here before Halle comes in. Petey leaves. Just all of a sudden is gone. What he did was he had surgery so that he was no longer severed. So the chip they put in your brain, he had deactivated. But reintegration means that now those memories from when you're at work are reintegrated with the memories from the rest of your life, and it doesn't put them in order. So the way you think back on your life, and you've got this chronological, this happened, this happened, this happened. Because of the way that it works with Severance, it throws off your chronology. It throws everything off. And then there's some real physical illness that really takes place with Petey throughout the season, where you're left really stuck with the fact that Petey was really good friends with Mark S. It's hard for Mark to lose Petey. So Petey in the real world's going to Mark, who doesn't remember him, because this is Petey outside of Lumen, doesn't have a memory of Petey, and Petey's trying to tell him there's stuff going on down there, and you need to figure out what it is. Meaning that when he's at work, he has no idea he's had that conversation with Petey. Now, I mentioned with Irving. Irving has these visions of things that he can't explain. He keeps getting thrown into wellness to see that he's okay. I really think it's his chip malfunctioning. They don't confirm that. I'm not giving any kind of spoilers here, but there is a moment of clarity he has towards the end of the season. And again, I'm not spoiling it again because the season finale is fantastic, and I don't want to spoil it for anybody. But I think, to me, that confirms that that's what it is. Now, Bert, Christopher Walken. Christopher Walken's fantastic. His character in this really reminds me of his character in Click. Now, his character in Click kind of turns out to be the devil. And Click was a movie that had a good concept. The first, I'll say 20 minutes of the movie Click, starring Adam Sandler, is very good. I was very impressed with it. And then it went, boom, right off a cliff. As soon as it gets goofy, we have to have the goofy stuff. Oh, and then we have to have really, really serious stuff too. And it just felt like it was all cobbled together, and it wasn't really a fully fleshed out idea. They had to have the goofy humor in there because Adam Sandler. And it felt like either Click should have been a serious movie, the cautions of enjoy your life and appreciate what you have, like It's a Wonderful Life kind of thing, or just make it goofy. But they kind of went with both, and it didn't work. But Christopher Walken in the movie Click is fantastic. He is probably the highlight of that movie. And as soon as I saw him in this series, I was like, it's his character from Click. And I never really shook that off. But everything he does is so well. It's understated. I don't think he understands how evil this company really is. I think he is just very happy to work. I think he's very happy to have his coworkers there. And Dylan, again, this is really where Dylan starts to win me over big time. Absolutely hates that Bert works in optics and development, or optics and optics and it's a development area, right? And so Dylan basically, they're monsters, they're horrible people. You guys are terrible. Get the F out of my area. What are you doing here? Get the F out of here. Like, he's not nice for a moment. He's not approachable. He's just, I hate that guy. Who is that? I hate him. Keeping in mind, for Dylan, for the Dylan that's got this chip, at work is all he remembers. So he's never met anybody from O&D, but he knows he hates them. And I think that's fantastic. I think that's absolutely awesome. And there's hints that at some point in time there was some really violent event at Lumen. And that might be what they're building towards, is another really violent event on that floor. But yeah, it's great. Devin, who is Mark's sister, I think is played well enough. There's something else going on in the outside world. I think they could do more of a look at what's going on in the outside world. There's a corrupt senator that's involved in this whole making sure that Severance is considered okay. Because there's something odd about it. And I mentioned this to Yvonne too. You could go crazy on the outside. So let's just say, going back to my old job, I would get up at 3:30 in the morning. I would start work at 4:20. Make jokes here. But I would start work at 4 o'clock and 20 minutes in the morning. So from 4:20 in the morning until 1 o'clock in the afternoon when I was off, that block of time would not be accessible to my mind once I leave work. So in my mind's eye, I wake up at 3:30, I get to work, suddenly it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and so I have roughly 7 or 8 hours to have a life, and then I go to sleep. While we don't enjoy work, most people don't enjoy their work. I think that's kind of standard. There are many, myself included, who are blessed to enjoy what they do for a living. But I do remember the 20 plus years that I had jobs I didn't necessarily like. As much as I didn't like them, if you took those memories away from me, I would feel like something's wrong here. I'm only living 8 hours a day. It wouldn't feel right. And I would be, because of work, I would feel tired. My body is still getting tired. So I'd be like, man, I'm just exhausted. Why? I have no idea. And they show how these guys get cuts at work. They get bruised up at work. And then work just gives them a little note. Here's what happened to you. Sorry. We put a Band-Aid on you. And they don't tell them the truth about how they got banged up at work or how they got cut. And just the idea, just think of that. Just think of how insidious that is, how brutal that is. So everything about this show just kept sucking me in further. And I really wonder how far this is going to go. Now, there were little things that I thought were funny in this show. Devin's midwife's name is Alexa. And as soon as I heard that, I went, huh. Sure enough, twice in the series, somebody would say her name and my little device would go off. And it would say, sorry, I didn't understand what your request was, kind of thing. I look forward to in season 2 when there's somebody whose name happens to be OK Google, because Apple is the creator of this series, right? So I thought that was funny. Then you have Natalie. Natalie, they could flesh out a little more. She's just a speaker for the board. You never find out who's on the board. You never find out who's in her ear. You just know that the board tells Milchik what to do and Miss Cobell what to do, and that's what you know. You don't know where they are. You don't know who they are. And I think we'll get a good idea for who they are early in season 2, because Miss Cobell is on the warpath at this point. Also, just the fact that this is your cast through the whole first season, and that on the left you've got your characters that are in this show a lot, and Miss Casey's not in it a ton. So the show keeps it to a small level of characters, which is really, really important to a good show. Keep it tight, keep it to a small number of people. Don't make it this big sprawling epic. Not every show has to be a big sprawling epic. And really get into the interpersonal stuff. Each person in this group of 4 here has a different relationship with somebody else in that group of 4. And that to me is huge. So again, I'm not getting into spoilers. I thought about it. I thought I'll go ahead. I'll get into spoilers. Nah. I'm not getting into spoilers, because where's the fun in that? It is easily one of the best written shows I've ever watched. The reviews for it, I think it's got a 97% on Rotten Tomatoes. The audience score, I think, is like 93%. I might be getting those numbers backwards. The reality is, it's almost unheard of that both the audience and the reviewers like a show that much. It's fantastic. It's absolutely awesome. I don't know that I can recommend it more. Patricia Arquette, as she gets older, she just gets better and better as an actress. And it's funny because, I had a crush on her way back in the day in Nightmare on Elm Street Dream Warriors. First time I saw her, I was like, and done. Patricia Arquette, and I had characters in books I wrote that were loosely based on her character, Kristen, in Nightmare on Elm Street. I even named Kristen because it didn't matter. I didn't think my books were going anywhere, so it wouldn't matter. But yeah, Patricia Arquette has just been absolutely fantastic. The one thing I noticed with the show, too, they try really hard to make her look as old and dowdy as possible. The funny part being that Patricia Arquette and Adam Scott, I think there's 4 years difference between the two, but they kind of play it off to make it seem like she wants to be a mother figure to Mark. She clearly has feelings for Mark, and I wonder what the nature of those feelings are, and how deep those feelings are, and whether it's going to affect their relationship going forward. Because by the end of this first season, like, all hell breaks loose in that final episode. And there's no closure to any of it. But again, I think that building has to be full of people. That building is way too big for that few number of people. The baby goats thing, what's that all about? Again, if you haven't watched it, you're like, baby goats? Go watch it. I laughed really hard with the baby goats. And the baby goats thing, I'm really hoping the payoff for that is absolutely fantastic. I really, really hope that's fantastic. The other weird things, like the ceiling lights are rigged up to flash in disco-like colors. Who did that? Did they do that when they set up the office? Is that something that every office has, or is it just macro data refinement? So there's a lot of things that went through my head watching this. I will definitely watch season 1 again, because it does feel like a show that if you watch it a second time from the start, it might be one of those shows where you go, now I understand that character here. Now I understand that going on here. This is really fantastic. There's some definite harrowing moments in it. And it's a show that there are some quirky, funny moments. It's not a comedy. And it was kind of marketed in a way that kind of made it look like it might have some comedic idea to it. It really isn't. There are funny moments, especially with Irving and his knowledge of everything Lumen related. Bert has some definite comedic moments because it's Christopher Walken, so of course. And Dylan had me flat out cackling by the end of the season. He's just absolutely fantastic. So this is a show that's created a world where I kind of care about everybody. I want to know more of Milchik's story. There has to be more with Milchik. There has to be more there. The fear he had at the end of that season was real. And so I want to see in season 2 what happens to him as a result of what happened and what consequences he has. Because I think it would be great if Milchik somehow ended up in macro data refinement. I think it'd be great if they decided we can have a 5th person in that area. But again, I don't know what they're like. The computers all look like they're from the 80s. The show seems to be set in modern, like right now. All the cars seem like they were 80s, 70s. The technology's all 90s, 80s, and yet everybody has a cell phone. So it's one of those shows that has its own world. It's built its own universe, and it's consistent. It is consistent. Everything has a color. It has a hue. There's nothing really bright in this show. Even when it's daylight, there's still this darkness in every scene, even if it's set in broad daylight. And I like that. I like that there's this monochromatic feel to Lumen. There's a monochromatic feel to the town outside as well. And that that stays consistent. It's really important that that stays consistent. You can tell there's a vision with this show and that they understand. Don't show everything at once. This is a show that could go on for a very long time because there are so many. You could have season 2 kind of wrap things up with these 4 and do something completely different. Here's another area of Lumen. Here's this mystery. Figure this one out. And then by like season 5, we could merge everything together. Like they could do that. I'm not saying they will. I'm saying they could do that. World building is huge in a show like this, and it's doing it so well. Again, I think it knocked it out of the park. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And again, if you haven't watched Severance, I cannot recommend it enough. I will talk to you again soon.